I welcome you to today's session of the Decolonize project. So, right now, I'm going to talk about our journey till today. The world's largest synthesis of the youth research, recommended policy and action on climate change. As the world prepares for COP24, 100,000 plus youth from across the planet will mobilize around the continued impact of colonization and repercussions on climate change.
In Poland here we have Australia, Brazil, Canada, Cuba, India, Indonesia, Kenya, Latvia, Nigeria, Palestine, Peru, the Philippines, Poland, and the United States. We have China, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ghana, Morocco, Nepal, Slovenia, Taichung, Thailand, Turkey, and Trinidad and Tobago, not here in Poland, but they're still here with us in spirit.
So half of our project is decarbonize, and decarbonize's literal definition is to reduce the amount of gaseous carbon compound emissions that go into our atmosphere. So in our collaboration, we focused on reducing our carbon footprint and mitigating the amount of emissions that we're making. And so we've calculated these by using multiple simulations. And at the end of the simulations, we learned how to mitigate and reduce our carbon emissions. And there's a quote here at the bottom from our US students, which relates back to that.
The other half is decolonize, and that is to allow colony or territory to become self-governing or independent. Throughout the project, we've been trying to expose the relationship between colonization and carbon emissions. We've been researching the effects that colonization has on Indigenous people around the world, and now how to include marginalized voices in climate change discussion and mitigation strategies. So Richard from the Philippines, who is here with us today, has said respecting and acknowledging is the importance of Indigenous knowledge, and it will benefit us all. It is critical that the first step of this is proper education for us all. Thank you.
Our project, when it comes down to climate change, we often neglect the opinions and view of Indigenous people and youth. So throughout the project, we've made it our goal to present these underheard voices by gathering information from research and speaking with Indigenous communities and schools. We also show the connection between colonization and climate change and how they directly affect each other.
Hello everyone, so my name is Sarah and we are all from Townsville, which is located in the northeast coast of Australia. So that's allocated on the red star you can see on the map here. Furthermore, if we move to the next slide, this is what Townsville looks like. So as you can see from the picture, it's usually sunny and we have a rather warm and tropical climate. So as for us, we're Year 10 students of Pimlico State High School, which lies on the traditional land of the Walkarukaba and Bindal people. So at school, we all take part in a Year 10 Global Studies class, which focuses on the participation in the Decolonize project.
Hello, I'm Max, and for Townsville, we're impacted by climate change by low and inconsistent levels of rainfall. So currently, we're in a statewide 10-year drought and have level 2 water restrictions. So this limits how we use water both industrially and even at a household level. We're also impacted by tropical cyclones, which are basically hurricanes of more rain, if you can hear that slide. And these, in recent years, has become both more frequent and more severe. And also the Great Barrier Reef, which we're right next to in Australia, is under constant threat from both tropical cyclones and coral bleaching, which is due to excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Hello, I'm Tia and I'm Indigenous Australian. Indigenous Australia is made up of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I'm a direct descendant of the Pitta Pitta people located in northwest Queensland, and I strongly feel as an Indigenous person that my voice isn't being heard, and our knowledge of the land and of Australia built from thousands of years of passing down isn't being used to the best of its ability, and it's definitely not being included in Australia's current climate change issues, and we don't have a voice in terms of Parliament when it comes to climate change actions.
So in terms of action plans, we've analysed a few case studies which include Walther and Seed. So Walther is the Western Arnhem Land Fire Abatement Project, which employs Indigenous Indigenous Australians to run controlled burn-offs, which is burning off the land. So not only does this reduce carbon emissions, but this also reduces the risk of dangerous bushfires in Australia. SEED, on the other hand, is an Indigenous youth climate network, which campaigns for climate action and tries to give these Indigenous youth as much of a voice as possible.
So for us in Action, our class is trying to make our school carbon neutral. So that's mitigating and offsetting our CO2 emissions through carbon sequestration, just planting trees, introducing compost and soft plastic recycling bins, and looking for sustainable energy alternatives rather than our regular coal power. So currently we've introduced solar panels to our school and we've paid the down payment for it, and they'll be installed next year. So hopefully soon we can make our school carbon neutral and help contribute to combating climate change.
Hello, my name is Bruna and I'm 15 years old.
Hi, my name is Lara and I am 13 years old. We are from São Paulo, Brazil.
Okay, this is a graphic of our temperature in Brazil since 1933 until 2013. And here you can read what are the lines, the main lines. But as you can see, all the temperature are getting higher, and this is because of the global warming.
So this is our city, São Paulo.
It looks like very beautiful, like you might think, oh my god, this is very, very nice, I want to live here. But we have a lot of problems and we will talk about it a little bit.
So this is our daily reality in São Paulo when it comes to traffic. This is the consequence of the overpopulation we have in our city, and this overpopulation is totally related to the urbanization, which is a really shocking result of the colonization.
I don't know if you remember the sky, but the first one was very clean, the sky, and this is polluted. This situation we can see just in months with lack of rain, mainly August, and oh my god, I forgot it. This is also connected to, the deforestation in Amazon, because Amazon rainforest is responsible for 44% of Brazil's rain, and we're just cutting it down. This year was one of the worst ones because there was an increase of 14% in the deforestation, the biggest one in the last 10 years.
So these are pictures from the Tietê River. Tietê River is one of the most important rivers in São Paulo, and back in the day, São Paulo citizens used Tietê River for entertainment. But due to the urbanization and the city growth, the government built barriers around the river where the pollution began. Because of this, the Tietê River became no more than a landfill for industrial pollution and domestic sewage.
This is that river you saw in the first picture. Okay, this is a project that our school participated. It's called Observing the Rivers, and it emerged in São Paulo, obviously because of the river pollutions. Every month, a group of students goes to Congonhas stream, which is very close to our school, and as you can see, it's very, very dirty. When we arrive there, we first clean all the area around, and then we collect a sample of the water to make physical and chemical analysis. After this, we put all these information in a paper and post it in a website where everyone can see and be aware of our river's quality. In this website, there are other organizations that do the same thing and post in the website so everyone can see.
So as a positive change movement, our school started a campaign called Copo Zero, in English, Zero Cup. It's based on the removal of the use of straws and plastic cups in our school. So it all started with little children from kindergarten distributing water bottles to all the students. So this is a really good project to our school because it promotes greater community awareness.
Okay, Brazil has a really big connection with indigenous people. So much is that before the Portuguese arrival, there were 3 to 4 million indigenous people here. So, as we don't have so much time, we're not going to talk so much. But we think that the most powerful voice they have in Brazil, and it's not that much, is through FUNAI. FUNAI is the official indigenous organ of Brazilian state, and their biggest objective is to protect and promote their rights. They fight for demarcation and limitation of their lands, besides the controlling and monitoring their lands. Yes, and it's this.
So bringing in indigenous knowledge into education is something very close to our everyday life in school. In Brazil, there's a law which obligates every school in the whole country to include indigenous culture in academic years. Also, there's a lot of schools in Brazil that visit indigenous communities with the purpose of putting into practice what was learned in class. This makes us feel closer to our native people who were and are very important to our nation. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn. I'm 15 years old.
And I'm Ray, I'm 17,
I go to Queen Elizabeth School,
and I'm in Argyle Center.
and they're both located in Edmonton, which is the big river.
It's also on Treaty 6 territory.
Treaty 6 territory is home to the Dene, Nakota Sioux, Saulteaux, Cree, Blackfoot, and Métis indigenous groups. So the climate change adaptation and resilience strategy is a three-phase action plan. So phase 1 is to research and recognize what has happened in terms of climate change.
Phase 2 is to start making a plan towards that action.
And phase 3 is to put that plan into action.
And so here's one of the steps that Edmonton is trying to take to reduce our carbon emissions. This is the bus that will be using electricity instead of gasoline, although it is just a prototype, so we do not know much.
In August of 2018, the city of Edmonton was charged with multiple offenses under the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act.
And here you can see that basically our economy is very oil driven, and so our government is like, well, the oil is great, so they're going to ignore the impact that it has on climate change. It's just this big loop. And to add on, the illustration is by Josh Holinsky. Sorry, Josh, if I mispronounced your name.
So the Lubicon Cree, which is located in northern Alberta, has had their traditional ways of life and land disrupted by water pollution, which was caused by oil sands being unconsensually built on their land.
And here you can see that the Papa's Cheese burial grounds, not sounds, were stolen by EPCOR. They built it right on top of their burial grounds. And EPCOR is a water and electricity company. And the workers there were simply told to toss the bodies into the river.
That's Canada.
That's
Alright, hi. I am Mara. I am 14 years old and I am from Latvia. It's right here, if you didn't know, you're not the only one. So, Latvia is overall a very green country. 45% of our land is actually forest. The main issue of our country, I would say right now, is ocean pollution and trash. So because of where Latvia is located, there isn't enough circulation in the water, so all the waste and trash just stays in our Gulf. And the second problem is trash, as I mentioned. So Latvia has been trying to implement a deposit system. For each bottle you would get 10 cents. But there are two main issues. So first off, prices will rise for like 3.1 euro cents, which adds up to a lot of money. And second, Latvia has many politically influential people that are actually in control of many of the trash companies. So they stand to lose a lot of money. And this means there's a lot of hesitance to continue, both from citizens and also politicians. So the next step would be recycling, because Latvia almost did reach the 2015 desired limit, but we would still need a lot of work to be done because there have been many campaigns, but there's still a very long way to go. And also for the deposit system, it is estimated that 75% of waste in oceans and seasides and overall anywhere in Latvia would be reduced. So this does stand to be very beneficial if only we were to look at the main picture. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Tarnim again. So as you can see, I come from Hyderabad, which is a city in Telangana in South India. This over here is the Charminar, which was built by the Nizams. This monument is also a heritage site as it is 400 years old, and the Nizams have been were ruling Hyderabad for around 600 years. So as you can see, this is the night view of Charminar, and you can see that this is very busy. This was the condition until last 6 months. So as you can see, there's a lot of vehicular traffic which releases a lot of carbon dioxide and monoxide, which has reacted with the monument, leading to certain patches and marks around the monument. So to stop this, the government has taken an initiative to ban the entry of vehicles up to a radius of 2 kilometers and has built special pathways to access Charminar and the market area around. This over here is my school, the main building of my school rather. My school is the Hyderabad Public School, which was also built by the Nizams. It is almost 95 years old, and yeah. Taking inspiration from last year's Decarbonize project, we have taken certain measures to do our bit to combat climate change. That there is one of the rainwater harvesting pits. We have around 12 of them around our whole school. To tell you, our school is around 300 acres. And this is the kitchen garden and the herbal garden. Wait a second. We also have a compost pit, which we have revived recently. It produces compost it produces almost around 286 kgs of compost, which is also used in these gardens. The herbal garden adds up to the medicinal value and also to the green cover of our school. The kitchen garden, however, was established with the vision to supply vegetables to all the 4,000 students in our school without the needing to buy vegetables from outside in the next 5 years. This you can see is my school the whole way around here, and we have a lot of green cover. The green cover over here also acts as a carbon sink for the school and the surrounding areas. So if you were to go around the school, you would feel very cool. And as you can see, this is the main road. So like there's a lot of vehicular traffic over here, but still the air is pretty much clean around here. If you see this river here, it is a distributary of the Mosi River. Now this river was crystal clear and could have been used for agriculture and drinking purposes and etc. But now it is pitch black and has been polluted by industrial effluents released upstream. So as an initiative, me and my team have started an online campaign to spread awareness among the government and to attract NGOs, because this can't be done alone. And we are also in the process of contacting the industries which are releasing the pollutants. Next slide, please. Over here is the Gondi tribe. Now, last year there was this guy from Adilabad, which is another city in Telangana. The Gondi, he was a part of the Gondi tribe, and he realized that the tribal people are decreasing. So he took an initiative to revive the Gondi language, and he has almost set up a Gondi dictionary, helping these people with their daily work and to communicate with other people. To also tell you, there are many indigenous tribes in India which are getting extinct. And as I said, Gondi is also spoken by 12 million people across India. Although the governments are working very hard to bring about welfare schemes for the upliftment of these tribal people, many of the schemes are yet to reach the interior tribal people, leaving them in poverty and neglected. Now, India has almost one of the largest road transports in the whole world. So why didn't we reach them? It's simple, because they are very remote and you can't just build a road everywhere. So the government is taking initiatives to send representatives around these areas and to help them out. Now, if you were to see, most of the tribes right now have been urbanized and now belong to the urban community. They are well educated, they either have odd jobs or very well paid jobs. Next slide. I spoke about a school for mitigating climate change. Now I'd like to speak about my country. This over here is one of the largest solar farms.
Anyone?
Battery.
Anyone? Sorry.
Resume. This over here is one of the largest solar farms in India, and as everyone knows, the Tropic of Cancer passes through India, and we are a bit towards the equator. So we get direct rays from the sunlight. So solar panels are a big resource of energy. Next slide, please. We also have inland windmills, and we are in the process of building wind farms offshore to produce more electricity. Over here is the oscillating surge wave converter. This is also being introduced. This is a prototype, and India is one of the bidders. So this takes an energy from this takes an oscillating surge wave energy from the sea waves and is directly sent on grid. And these are some of the major dams in India. As everyone knows, 95% of India is not 95% of India. Rather, the whole part of India has a lot of rivers. If I start, I may not end. So we have dams almost in every river, but then we have certain bans because we do meet with accidents with dams. Next slide, please. And thank you.
Hello, my name is Hamid from Palestine, and I live in Ramallah, which is a major city in Palestine. As a habitant in Ramallah, we experience climate change through the increasing in temperature, the increase in rainfall intensity, and variation of rainfall patterns, which later results in floods. For example, in the early 2000s, the municipality of Ramallah designed a drainage system for a street with an outlet of 100 cubic meters. But in 2018, there was 10,000 cubic meters flowing through that outlet as a result of climate change and urbanization. Climate change is the new in Palestine, since we don't contribute to it, but affected by it. Also, this subject is secondary for the people because you are under occupation. So people worry more about surviving than climate change. Also, the public concern is how to access water and to provide power and other basic needs. However, we have Environment Quality Authority and other NGOs that concern about climate change. The Environment Quality Authority leads the research about climate change, in which they produced the first national communication report. This report identified the most vulnerable sectors, which were 12 sectors, with water resources as the most vulnerable. Also, this report suggested a project in order to increase the adaptation capacity in Palestine. This authority also set policies to control water and energy consumption and conducted several types of workshops to deal with climate change. They conducted workshops to raise awareness among the public, especially for students. However, the Israeli occupation has played a substantial role in decreasing the adaptation capacity, since it controls the borders and also provides the legislation for projects. Thank you.
I'm Maria, this is Adriana, Michał, Mikołaj, Victor, and Ella.
Okay, so as you may have already noticed, we are from Poland. This is our hometown, at least most of us, for a few exceptions. And we are here today to present to you the effects and the horrible changes that are happening to our city. We are the right people to present to you the dooming effects of climate change and pollution in Silesia and in Katowice, because we live here and we experience these effects every single day. We breathe this air, we look at the sky, we hear the noises on the roads. And that's why we're here to tell you why climate change is terrifying and it will eventually kill this region. We are the youth of Poland and we call for action and progress.
Climate change is a global problem, period. There's no arguing about that. I mean, you all know it, that's why you're here. But global climate change is not only a global problem, but our personal one. Every single one of us go through streets, parks, squares of cities and agglomeration. Of this agglomeration, home to more than 3 million people. And what do you see? What do you feel? Well, let me tell you. You see litter running around, you see buildings, monuments, nature devastated by acid rains. You see smog limiting your vision, which sometimes makes you cough your lungs out. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of most cities in this region. Did you know that in 50 most polluted countries in Europe, 36 of them are in Poland? I mean, that's ridiculous. It's 72%, almost 3/4. WHO has an annual average of PM 2.5 not to exceed 10 micrograms per cubic meter. In Poland, CAFE raised this limit to 25. But cities as Krakow had, for example, 45 micrograms per cubic meter in 2014. 45, right, with a limit of 10. I mean, scale is a bit off. And it's not only that. The European Union standards and norms allows for 35 days with PM10 level being higher than 50 micrograms per cubic meter. 35 days. In Poland, we have more than 100 of such days. And if that's not bad enough, we sometimes hit up to 300 micrograms per cubic meter. 93% of energy being produced in Poland comes from fossil fuels. 88% from coal itself. Right now, you can see no end to this overuse of fossil fuels.
That's why we decided to make our own project, own campaign, which would raise awareness among people living in our area. We decided to make workshops with doctors all over Poland, so that they can tell us about the impact climate change has on us. It's called odnawialni, so in English, renewable.
Okay, the fact that we see what we breathe is just terrifying. That's why the Polish government decided to take some actions to improve the quality of air and avoid the global warming. The first action that they decided to do is giving allowance to people who would like to change their furnace into a new modern one. The older ones are using basically coal to produce heat, which equals to releasing loads of carbon dioxide and other harmful gases to the atmosphere. The newer ones, however, use electricity that isn't harmful, that is harmless for us. Second step is the prohibition of traditional light bulbs and changing them into LEDs. A traditional light bulb uses only 5% of the energy to produce light and 95% to produce heat, which means that 95% of the energy is wasted. And LEDs use 80% less energy than traditional light bulbs. If we use less energy, then less coal will be burnt in Silesia. And the third step is some transport companies, for example the Silesian Railways, 1 day per month organize some days that basically drivers can go without any payment. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone, good morning, and my name is Kamila. You can call me Kamila. I'm from East Java, Jombang, East Java, Indonesia. So here, so I'm here today. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about garbage in the oceans. or more precisely about marine debris, that because it's become a trending topic in Indonesia. So, okay. So, yeah, and the biggest problem, and the problem is because of our carelessness. Like some people, or even one of us, is still littering. Like example, like throwing garbage to the sea, to the river, and to the road, or etc. And it produces waste that accumulates in the river towards the ocean, where garbage can exit fish in the oceans. So I think it's dangerous for our life. And then by the way, Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic country with more than 17,000 islands, with more than 260 million population, and we share ocean borders with Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, and China. And a lot of our big cities are located nearby the oceans. So most of our people still are dependent on the oceans, but we have serious problems like our beaches, coastal areas, and seas are highly polluted to a very alarming level, and also we have a lot of traditional tribes and indigenous people whose lives are also dependent on the oceans. And then our country has great concern about our ocean problems. We host World Ocean Summit in 2017 and our ocean conference in 2018, which we attended last month in Bali, Indonesia. And we meet young people from all over the world and learn from their countries' experiences in dealing with ocean problem. So our school, So our school, Riban Vida Islamic Boarding School, had discussion with people and stakeholders who live in nearby coastal town in Lamongan to identify problem and solution to the ocean pollution. So here we are the example. So this is in Lamongan. So I just go there and I'm sightseeing for so there's many garbage in the coast of the sea. And then the ocean doesn't need us. We need the ocean more than it need us. Indonesian Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Susi Pujiastuti, conduct cleanup activities on the coast of the sea. And as part of a commitment to reduce 70% of plastic waste in the ocean by 2025, she said that plastic waste that enters the sea can be split into small particles called microplastic, and microplastic measuring 0.3 to 5 millimeters. So the dangerous is microplastics are very easy to consume by marine animals. So it can be reduce the fish, animal in the oceans. And I think next. Okay. myself, I'm just make this mind mapping in Indonesia. So this is about like safe oceans, and so like we doing like a simple action in our building store, like 7 minutes pick trash up in every morning and afternoon. Yeah, and extra. I think that's it. So thank you so much.
Hi. So my name is Lisa. I am 16 years old and I go to St. Austen's Academy. I live in Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. Right here, like that. Yeah. Okay. So Nairobi is located in the eastern part of Africa. We have the equator crossing the country. Although we have the equator, we have different climate. We have savanna, highlands, lakelands, plains and plateaus, and coastal areas. Okay, so this is the Mao Forest. The Mao Forest is one of the main water catchment areas for Kenya. As you can see the top pictures, this is how green it was. Now, initially, the Ogek indigenous community lived in this forest. Now, because of political reasons, people moved into this forest illegally due to corruption. And they took this land. And these guys had families and families and families, so they grew and they took the forest land and kept on going into the forest, although it was not allowed. So because of that, there was a lot of logging, as you can see in this picture. And they cut down trees for land use to build up homes and for agriculture. So because of that, this has changed Kenya's climate patterns. And we have been highly affected by this. We are an agricultural nation, so we highly depend on agriculture. And it's actually one of the main economy boosters. So because of the change of climate patterns, we didn't have a lot of rain, and that affected the whole country. So this has been a big problem in Kenya, because now many people live in the Mao Forest, and they have nowhere else to go, because these are generations and generations of people. So we can't really displace them and move them, because they have nowhere else to go. However, if they do continue to stay there, we won't have a forest going back to its initial form. So this is Mount Kenya. It is very beautiful. It's the largest mountain in Kenya and the second largest mountain in Africa. So the glaciers contribute to the source of many networks and channels of rivers, which go into dams and lakes and eventually the ocean. So because of the rise in temperature, the glaciers have melted, and about 90% of the ice has gone in the past 20 years, which is a large amount. So when the ice melts, the rivers tend to flood. So that happens short term, and this has affected very many communities. As you can see, there are two ladies just walking in the river, just like that. In the long term, it leads to drought. So this is because when the ice melts, because of the high temperatures, it's not able to go back into the solid form. So it eventually evaporates, therefore leading to drought. So these are the indigenous communities in Kenya. This is the Ogek community. Now in Kenya, the indigenous community value land and pasture. That's the source of wealth. So the amount of land and animals you have, that's what's considered wealth in Kenya. So because they have a different culture, the government does not really look at them as the mainstream to our economy. Therefore, they don't really look at their rights. And yeah, so indigenous communities have a communal community. So they tend to share land, they do not see a need to like build a fence and say, okay, this is your land, this is my land. So they go to people's land thinking that it's okay. However, the government enforces them to have title deeds, but that's against that culture. So Kenya is a developing nation, so we tend to try build up buildings and roads and dams. So the government takes the land because they have no title deeds, and they have been highly affected by climate change. So indigenous, we got to interview the Maasai community, and we realized that they have a lot of ideas and knowledge to combat climate change. However, because the government does not see them as a mainstream of our economy, the knowledge is not really put into climate action. So that's actually really bad. So our school, country, and community take part to combat climate change. One of the main things our country has done is the plastic paper bag ban, which has been really good for us. However, because the people that come from a low social class cannot afford the reusable bags, so they tend to keep the plastic bags and exchange them illegally. What else? Kenya has made this action that they plan to do, which is to make the whole country a clean energy, sustainable development thing by 2020. So we are taking steps towards that action. Our school contributes to planting trees. We have planting trees programs. We have anti-litter policy. We encourage people to switch off the lights when they're not using it. And we have clubs, such as this one that we participate in, to create awareness. Though, however, it's not included into the school curriculum, so if you do not have interest, you are not able to learn about climate change and the actions. So as for the community, my family and I participated in this club called Kijani Gang. Kijani in Kiswahili, so translated to English, means leaves or warriors. So we are warriors for the environment. So we tend to focus on creating awareness. So usually when people are creating awareness, they tend to look at the negative aspects. So they look at photos like this and this. They show people what's happening. But we don't want to tell people what they're, we want to show them what could happen if we all take action towards climate change. So we create a positive mindset by showing pictures of what our country or environment can look like if we do take action towards that. Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Deborah. I'm 16 years old. I attend Government Model Secondary School, Jukwe. I'm from Abuja, Nigeria. Nigeria is located in the heart of Africa. Nigeria is a country that is rich in material resources, human resources, and natural resources such as crude oil, biodiversity, and culture. Nigeria has 36 states, 6 geopolitical zones, and 774 local governments. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people. But just like other countries, we are bedeviled and challenged by climate change, such as oil spillage. This is a situation that occurs because in Nigeria we have different multinational countries, and there's a state in Nigeria that is called the Niger Delta. They are rich in crude oil. So some of these companies, they come to Niger Delta and extract this crude oil. And after this process is being done, this is what happens, that like the byproduct of it. This leads to soil degradation, underground water pollution, river pollution. The people there are suffering. They can't drink clean water. The fishes are dying. They can't farm, and they don't actually have any benefit. This is like super bad. Next slide, please. This is flooding. it occurs in many states in Nigeria, many states. Even where I live, there was a time we experienced flooding. This occurs as a result of blockage of drainage systems, and the water can't really flow freely. Instead, they are stagnant, and it increases the water level. And look at now, these people, they are homeless, and it's really bad. Next slide. This is gas flaring. This in Nigeria, there's a lot of industrial activities in Nigeria, and when the industries are going up with their activities, it leads to gas flaring. This sometimes you wake up in the morning and you see black suits, they fall on your faces. You see them on cars. It destroys our atmosphere. You can't really breathe in clean oxygen, and it really leads to climate change. So I'll just talk about more. In Nigeria, we also experience desertification. In Nigeria, we have a group of people who we call the Fulani headsmen. They are cattle bearers. So when the lush vegetables in their side, which is the northern part of Nigeria, are used, they tend to come from the north to the east, the south, and thereby decolonizing those people of their lands in order to feed their crop. This leads to decolonization, and this is an eco-violence. It's really bad. And our school, now back to indigenous people. Indigenous people have been existing way back, even before the commencement of civilization in Nigeria. But their knowledge is limited. They use their knowledge on medicine and all that. So, but indigenous knowledge, I think the problem they have, they don't really have this voice. They don't really speak out because they're not at the part of the bigger parts of Nigeria, so their opinions are not really heard. And documentation, they don't document. Like if a parent knows something about climate change, can document it for his or her kids in order to pass it from generation to generation. And also climate change is not included in our educational curriculum. So as they say, knowledge is power. So if it's included in our educational curriculum, I think we are going to go way forward. And now in our school in Nigeria, we have this project called the Green Issues. This is aimed at tackling environmental issues, and this project, their slogan is cut one tree and plant two. It's a really good project. We plant trees around our school. We discourage deforestation and encourage afforestation. We also create awareness with our fellow students around people around our school, in our community. We organize awareness so that people can know the disadvantages of climate change. Now, in our government, in the course of the eco-terrorism and eco-violence caused by the Fulani headsmen, our government back in Nigeria has initiated this ranching system where the Fulani people, they can stay in one particular place with lush vegetables so that they can feed their cow in peace without decolonizing the other people. And also our government in UNDP, in collaboration with Nigerian government, have put together a program to mop up the oil spillage in the Niger Delta community. There's also the Great Green Wall program to handle all environmental issues in Nigeria. We are really taking steps ahead to avoid climate change. And climate change is not a job for only just the government, it's also for the citizens. It's not a job for only someone, it's also for everyone. And it's not just a job for me, it's also for you. Thank you. Thank you.
So hi guys, I'm Richard from the Philippines, and this is Metro Manila, Philippines. It's a big metropolis. It's made up of a lot of cities, I think 17, and we're located here, Las Piñas City. And this is our school, St. Joseph's Academy. It's one of the oldest Catholic schools in our country. So the climate reality in Las Piñas and Metro Manila is really floods. During around July to November, we experience a lot of typhoons, 20 plus typhoons, and it's really a big problem because the typhoons contribute a lot of torrential rain, and the floods are actually knee-deep. And when there's a lot of floods, classes are really cancelled. We can't go out because it's really occupying the streets. As you can see here, the people are really desperate to go home because the floods are really reaching up their knees, or sometimes it's up until here. So during around March and up to May, we experienced the summer season. So it's the opposite of floods. We experience extreme heat. So the weather reaches up to 40 degrees Celsius, and this is a big problem. So the government is always reminding us that we should always stay hydrated, drink lots of water, because heat stroke is really imminent. Heat stroke really affects us because a lot of people get tired easily, and sometimes we can't go out because of the extreme heat. So yeah, as you can see, the Philippines experience polar opposites. Too much rain, too much heat. So why do we experience this? Metro Manila has become so much industrialized over the past years that it's really occupied, and the population density is really reaching high. And we also have the problem of extreme garbage. As you can see here, this is actually a coastal area. It's supposed to be an island, but it's covered up with lots of garbage. In our school, we have this project. We made a documentary project investigating about the environmental issues in our city, and we came up with that this Freedom Island, we call it Freedom Island, it's actually an island that's supposed to protect us from floods. Migratory birds from all over Asia come here during around January, but the problem is because of the garbage, it's really affecting us, and the garbage actually came from Metro Manila itself. All the garbage from the cities wash up here, and it's blocking up the drainage systems. So instead of blocking the typhoons, it's always blocking the sewage system, and the floods are worsening as the years go by. So what our school is doing is we have this organization called Environmental Conservation Organization that aims to develop more projects that will improve the environment around our school. So when you go to our school, it's really lots of trees. We have this rooftop garden. This is part of the rooftop garden, and the students are encouraged to plant trees, small plants, and this actually helps us breathe better. And these plants also help us in our researches. As of the moment, I think 2 groups in our school are conducting our research, and they're making a product out of the tamarind leaves in the school community. Also, our school is banning the usage of plastic spoons and forks. So during lunchtime, we're all encouraged to bring metal utensils, so it will help us not use plastic spoons and plastic bottles. We're also encouraged in our city by our mayor to use, instead of plastic bags, we're supposed to bring recyclable bags in the groceries. Also, in Metro Manila, the fast food companies are now implementing this no straws policy. So when you go, for example, like McDonald's or KFC, straws won't be available anymore because we're all encouraged to buy metal straws. So that really helps. So our government is actually doing a lot of stuff. They've implemented the Climate Change Commission. So we interviewed the Secretary of the Climate Change Commission, and they're focusing on a lot of policy research because the Philippines is actually one of the most vulnerable to natural disasters. I think way back in 2013, if you know, Typhoon Yolanda hit us. It's the most devastating typhoon to hit planet Earth. So it's really saddening because each year typhoons are really worsening. It's not actually typhoons, they're going to be around super typhoons. Also, the government implemented the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. This agency aims to inform and raise awareness about what the Filipino people should do when typhoons hit. So, for example, a typhoon is approaching, all Filipinos reach a text message. For example, it will say that orange rainfall system will commence in about 24 hours. So that means that classes should be suspended by then because torrential rain will really affect us. So what our city is doing actually is that some of the garbage and the water lilies that block our rivers are being transformed by the locals to become products like bags and other stuff like that. So in our country, as I've said, Metro Manila is industrialized. But our indigenous people are outside Metro Manila. They've occupied the provinces around it. So the problem is that because of industrializing our city and the provinces around us, those indigenous people are being displaced by the government itself. It's really saddening because as of the moment, there's a dam called the Laiban Dam that will be built around the Rizal province, and it will displace the Dumagat tribe. So instead of giving them the ancestral lands that they deserve, they're being displaced by the government itself. Despite the passing of the Indigenous Rights Act, the Dumagat tribe is being displaced and other tribes around the area. So what we're doing is that several non-government organizations are pushing for petitions, and also the youth like me, we can't do much because the government doesn't allow much of the youth and our voices are not really heard that well. So what we use is social media. Social media is a huge platform for us because as one of the most active users in social media, we use that to share awareness, share the news that the mainstream media cannot share to the whole country. So that acts like a backdoor for other news that we can share to others. So as you can see here, cleanup drives are being done in Freedom Island, and we also filmed there and we saw the devastating garbage. So our organization will actually go there, I think next month, to do another cleanup drive. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from our national hero, Dr. Acerza, that the youth is the hope of the motherland. So we encourage everyone, not only the youth, that we should be aware, step up, and take action. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andre. I'm from Peru. Peru is on the western of the side of South America. Huánuco is one of the 24 regions of Peru. Located in the eastern central Peru, Huánuco has a variety of different climatic regions, extending from snowy mountains, mountain range, warm valleys, and two types of jungle. Lauricocha, one of the highest provinces of Huánuco, 3,800 meters above sea level. Its average annual climate varies between 15.8 and 23.3 degrees centigrade. Here we find the amount of Yorubaha of 6,600 feet per meters above sea level. The second highest snow-covered mountain in Peru. The city of Huánuco is surrounded by mountains and located at 1,800 meters above sea level. He has an average temperature is 18.7 degrees centigrade. I might climate. Another region is Tingo Maria. It's located at high jungle, high forest, and 647 meters of sea level, with a tropical climate and average temperature of 24.4 degrees centigrade. It has rainforests and many mountains that have a rich diversity of flora and fauna. The city of Puerto Inca is located in the lowland forest and 200 meters of sea level, with a tropical climate. An average temperature is of 26.2 degrees centigrade. No mountains formed by the vast fluvial plains, great valleys, and great diversity of flora and fauna. Now, I will mention that briefly explain the problems that this province have. In Lauricocha, we find the Nevada of Yorubaha. The problem is that this snow-capped mountain is melting because of global warming, and this generates a scarcity of water, causing the people of the farming communities to migrate to the city. The main problem in the city of Huánuco is the contamination of the Guayaba River due to disposal of sewage from the city without being treated, which comes into its waters. Now the river no longer shelters life, and its water is unsafe for human consumption. The problem in Tingo Maria is the people cut the trees and to make space for growing agricultural products. cattle raising, then rice, watch the fertile soil, and after some crops the soil will be very poor. The problem in Puerto Rico is the indiscriminate logging. It is the second most affected province by forest depredation in order to grow oil palm, making global population vulnerable to the climate change. The solutions concerning the agriculture is mitigating the emissions of carbon dioxide, which is causing a faster temperature variation in the humidity. We can take many actions to counteract carbon dioxide emissions, like using vehicles that don't use fossil fuels or non-motorized vehicles. Another way would be reforestation, because trees work like a carbon dioxide treatment plant. The same suggestion came from the Aboriginal leader that we interviewed. He told us that the Aboriginal communities are doing deforestation in their lands. The original leader told us that they fought the global warming because just before they could work the land in the afternoon. Nowadays, it's impossible, so they have to start working before dawn. The solution for Huánuco is to build a treatment plant for the wastewater before it flows into the river. The main solution concerning the Tingo Maria is that our farmers should have education on productive, ecological and economic zoning, so that they grow their products in proper lands. On the other side, the Aboriginal communities asked to stop the invasion of the forest lands made by the Andean communities. Concerning Puerto Rico, a solution will be forest protection, and for that security checkpoints or roadblocks should be systematically implemented, whereas monitoring centers and stop corruption. Thanks.
Good morning, my name is Iván Martín Rodríguez. I'm from Cuba. Cuba is present here. Good morning for all, good morning for the world, because in this moment we are the world, because we are working to save the planet, our planet. The world is in danger and we need to fight for it. An important biological species is in danger of disappear for the fast and progressive liquidation of their natural conditions, the human man. Fidel Castro Cruz. Climate change is a problem that affects all. In Cuba, the climate change also it is not such an extreme situation. Naturally causes relevant effects that influence the life of people. The world is in danger, and we need to fight for it. The structure and the action in Cuba are visible. For example, the Cuban state established a norm and a plan named Task Life. On this basis, we worked with the students, visited coastal areas, conducted survey to the population to assess their perception of risk, analyzed the beach in terms of different indicators such as concentrations of components, chemical, biological. The task life, whose essence is focused on combating climate change, raises the reference to corals, forests, water distribution, monitoring of the coastal areas and beach. It also established legal norms, mitigation, perception and culture, as well as the capacity to adapt to change. Decarbonize, decolonize. This is the moment we need to fight to save the planet. I reaffirm the Albert Einstein word. There is a force most important than the steam, the atomic energy and the electricity, the will. With this will, we will work. Decarbonize, decolonize.
Hi everybody, we are Annika and Alyssa from Los Altos, California, and we are 13 years old, and we are representing the United States. We are very honored to have the opportunity to be here with all of you for such an inspiring cause.
Climate change has impacted us on a personal level, as there have been extremely destructive fires which have ravaged most of California. Here are a few pictures we took very recently, about a week or so ago, of our hometown Los Altos, California, which is in the United States. These fires were started in Chico, and even though this is about 200 miles away from our hometown Los Altos, the intense smoke from the fires drove many people indoors, and many schools were canceled due to the poor air quality. It may be hard to see here, but there's a thick layer of smoke in the sky as the air quality was deemed very hazardous and equivalent to smoking half a pack of cigarettes that day. The origin of all the smoke and the cause of the poor air quality can be seen here in these images. These pictures were taken in Chico, California, and the massive destruction can be seen from this terrible catastrophe which impacted the lives of many people during this time. More than 230,000 people fled their homes because of the destruction of all of these fires and the blazes which caused significant damage across the region. An image of the rating of the hazardous air conditions can be seen in the top right corner, demonstrating the areas with hazardous conditions.
Just weeks after the deadliest and most destructive wildfires in California history, the most comprehensive assessment of the effects of climate change on the United States was released by the Trump administration. According to the National Climate Assessment, these latest catastrophes were caused particularly by drying forests and making them more susceptible to burning. Extreme wildfires are not only a consequence of climate change, they can also contribute to a rise in carbon emissions. In fact, 2/3 of the carbon emitted by California ecosystems from 2001 to 2010 came from 6% of our land area that burned from fires. Despite all these tragedies, our air quality is much better now, thanks to a rainstorm we just had. Here are some pictures taken from our town after the smoke dissipated. The sky is blue, and the air smells fresh and sweet again.
In terms of local climate change projects, our town has many in which both the youth and adults participate in. One campaign our school participated in was the Glass Straw Initiative, which is right over there. We reached out to local businesses to use alternatives or skip distributing straws entirely. Our Decarbonize, Decolonize Club received a grant in order to purchase glass straws for our fellow teachers and students in order to use at school. Besides that, there are various other community projects that our town participates in order to make our community more clean and green. One of the projects that stand out to us the most is the Graymobile project, and this project was developed by 5th graders at our school, and the function of it is to transport gray water in order to water plants. The Graymobile is a fun, fast, and easiest way to water your and your neighbors' lawns. And it is important for climate change projects to be advocated in local communities, but equally important for the indigenous to also be included in this conversation.
In the United States, Native Americans control their own land and their own water on their reservations of land. Because of this, the Native Americans have been keeping their water clean and sustainable using traditions that have worked for them in the past. Using these methods of attaining fresh and clean water, case studies have shown that by converting to more traditional methods of the indigenous would be more appropriate and useful rather than our current methods. However, the indigenous people are hardly heard, as the government has ostracized and separated them onto their remote reservations. However, many people in the United States are taking steps to get the indigenous voices heard. There are many groups that are encouraging the indigenous people to open up and share their stories about what they have gone through using social media as a platform. Even more exciting is that during our midterm elections in the United States, Sheriff Davids from Kansas and Deb Haaland from New Mexico made history by becoming Congress's first Native American female members. This is a huge step forward for all the Native American population to have representation in the government. These representatives will allow the indigenous people and their unique ideas on climate change and other global issues to be heard in our governmental system and actually make a difference. We look forward to seeing the changes in perspective that the Native Americans bring to the discussions. Thank you.
Hello again. So all of us come from different parts of the world, so I'm pretty sure some of you are asking yourselves, how are we able to communicate and put together our ideas? Video conferences. Now, I would lie to you, this has been quite difficult because we all have different time zones, so communicating at one time can be difficult. Some people, they are in their beds early in the morning at 5 a.m. Some people, it's like at 12 at night. Some people are in school, some people are at home, so it's a struggle. However, we are able to do it together, and we come up with ideas and see how different countries are combating climate change in their own ways. So what we have realized is climate change is an issue. We are going through it in different ways, but we need to look at different perspectives to come up with ideas and solutions to combat this problem. Thank you.
Hello again. So another important part of the Decolonize project is our art. So it's also been our goal in the Decolonize project to get as much artwork as possible. And as of this year, we have received over 400 submissions of artwork, including the one you see here. And 20 of these have been selected to be displayed at the Youth Castle here in Katowice, which I think is amazing. But yeah, it's a common saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think it certainly is. But in this context, it also gives a person a voice wherever in the world they may be. And it helps us paint our picture on climate change as well as climate action. So it's really important in the Decolonize project that we get this artwork from all over the world. Thank you.
And if anyone has any questions for them, I'm sure they would love to share some of the things they've learned.
Present myself with this. Your laptop number?
Are there any questions for any of the youth? Would love to